All right, and we're recording for Canada's Hydrogen Strategy webinar presented in part by Hydrogen for Heating Network and HRAI. I am pleased to welcome to you to a huge packed presentation. We've got a lot of speakers and a lot of opportunities for questions. As you can see on the screen, if you're watching live, it's Pete Kupigan. Pete is the president of the Hydrogen for Heating Network. Pete, how are you doing?
Great. Thanks, Matt.
Hey, my pleasure. So welcome, Pete. And just a few housekeeping items before we kick it over to you. We are taking questions through this presentation. It can be interactive. So see at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A button. Place any questions you have in there, and we will get to as many as we can at the end of each presenter's time. We'll also, if we have time at the end, to catch any bulk questions that we might have missed. But otherwise, this is being recorded. It'll live forever on the HRAI YouTube page if you'd like to watch it again, or maybe share with folks who couldn't make it. And I'm going to stop there instead of eating into more time. Pete, over to you.
Thanks, Matt. Hi, everyone. Before we introduce the speakers, if at the end of today's webinar, you felt this webinar was helpful and would like to dive deeper, the Hydrogen Heating Network will be hosting its third live virtual forum focused on 100% hydrogen demos, hydrogen end-use lab testing example setups, and are planned for January 30th. That is the end of January 2024. It's a Tuesday. If you're interested in that, register at h2heating.net. A little bit about the Hydrogen Heating Network, or HHN. Our mission is to advance the conversation of hydrogen used as a fuel for gas appliances in commercial and residential buildings to help reduce greenhouse gases associated with burning natural gas, but using the same basic infrastructure. The audience for that January 30th conference will be a great audience, and we're getting support from like-minded associations and promote the forum as well as sponsorship. And they'll include leaderships from gas utilities, manufacturers, testing labs, research institutes, standards bodies, academias, regulators, and policymakers. So back to today's hydrogen heating state of the industry snapshot. First up, we have Laura Syke. She's a senior engineer with the Hydrogen Projects Group and within ATCO Gas and Pipelines in Alberta. She brings with her a decade of experience at ATCO with an expertise in distribution design and operations in the natural gas business. In her current role, Laura focuses primarily on the effects of hydrogen to system operations, end-use customers, and appliances. Additionally, she's responsible for ensuring employees within the organization are trained for owning, operating, and maintaining hydrogen and hydrogen blend assets. She's passionate about energy literacy and believes strongly in educating customers and the public on the impacts of different energy choices. She'll be speaking on the Fort Saskatchewan Blending Project, appliance testing, and 100% hydrogen projects. Laura, unmute yourself and over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Pete. Just share my screen here. I think we can get started. Awesome. So thank you so much for having me. My name is Laura Pesek. I'm a senior engineer on ATCO's Hydrogen Projects team, and I'm here to provide an update on ATCO's hydrogen-related work. So when we talk about hydrogen and ATCO, really the first project that we do need to talk about is our Fort Saskatchewan Hydrogen Blending Project. So starting in fall of last year, ATCO began blending 5% hydrogen to a portion of the distribution system in Fort Saskatchewan. So this is 2,100 customers, primarily residential, some small businesses, and one school. We really see this project as having three main components: the pipes, the people, and the processes. The pipes are the physical assets, the pipes in the ground, but it really is the people and the processes that are the more complex pieces. This all feeds into our Organizational Change Management Program, or OCM program. When we started this project, we met with stakeholders both internally and externally, and we said, what information do you need and what questions do you need answered prior to commissioning this project? And what we did is we developed a long list of action items that needed to be addressed prior to commissioning. For the Fort Saskatchewan project alone, we had over 166 action items, over 150 subject matter experts, 24 different departments, and 8 full-time employees managing this program. So it really was no small feat. In our OCM program, we were looking at things such as modifying our existing practices or really justifying why something doesn't need to be changed. Looking at new tools, equipment, training, and then of course, customer engagement, education, and outreach. Our OCM program is a program that we do for each individual project, and we really apply our learnings as we work to progress hydrogen here at ATCO. One of the big components of our OCM program was our customer engagement. So for our Fort Saskatchewan Hydrogen Blending Project, we engage with customers through open houses, community events, and what we called our hydrogen blending home inspections. These inspections were an initiative where we worked to meet with all impacted customers within our footprint to educate them on hydrogen, the project, and while we were there, we conducted a complimentary appliance check and leak check. This program was an overwhelming success, and we were able to meet with over 85% of impacted customers, which was almost 1,800 customers and over 5,800 appliances. So definitely no small feat for our employees to undertake. Using information from our hydrogen blending home inspections, we developed an appliance testing program reflective of what customers have in Fort Saskatchewan, but also here in Alberta. And we were constantly adapting what this program looked like as we received more information from our hydrogen blending home inspection program. We worked with UC Irvine down in California, as well as D&B out of the Netherlands, to evaluate things such as the gas interchangeability or the Wobbe index of the gas, radiation flux, so how close you actually need to get to the flame to feel the heat, burner deck temperature, flame ionization measurements, flue gas analysis, as well as visualizing what that flame structure itself actually looks like. We know that appliances require changes for 100% hydrogen, but really what we were working to determine is how high we can go with hydrogen blending before there is an impact to end-use appliances. And what we found is that there is no impact to appliances at our planned 5 and 20% blend rate. On the right here on this slide, you can see the maximum allowable blend percentage based on different appliances. However, we do know that these are conservative values, and we believe we can go higher than 20% with further testing. We're really proud of our appliance testing program at ATCO and really do believe we're leaders in this space. And chatting with other utilities in Canada and the United States, they were interested in ATCO's appliance testing results. And so what we did is, working with DNV, we created a joint industry project with different Canadian utilities to further the appliance testing program. Really what we did is we shared ATCO's appliance testing results, and we're working with utilities to build on these results. We're really comfortable with our appliances in Fort Saskatchewan, but as we expand on hydrogen blending in Edmonton and Calgary, we know that we'll encounter appliances that we haven't tested yet. And working with this JIP, we really can progress hydrogen blending here in Canada. As part of our OCM program, we reached out to a number of industry experts to help us answer key questions like material impact assessments, appliance testing, which we already talked about, leak detection, just to name a few. We understand that we are not experts in some areas, and we really did engage with experts across the globe to assist us in completing a successful OCM program. So that's just a teaser into our hydrogen blending project, but that kind of launches us over to our 100% hydrogen projects, which we have actually a number underway. So this here is our Fort Saskatchewan Operations Center. So this is co-located at our Fort Saskatchewan Gate 5 site. So that's our blending site in Fort Saskatchewan. And this will be North America's first 100% hydrogen heated building. So something we're really excited about. Construction's almost complete, and we're actually planning on commissioning this building next year. This will be an operations center for our employees working out of the area, as well as a training facility for our teams. We can demonstrate different hydrogen fueled appliances, as well as different hydrogen technologies, such as hydrogen production. So it'll be a really neat facility once it's commissioned early next year. So this is just a glimpse inside the building. So within the FSOC, Fort Saskatchewan Operations Center building, there will be 8 technology stations to house different rotational technologies. So this can be appliances, heat pumps, fuel cells, stuff like that. There will be 4 fuels to each bay. So you can kind of see the different pipes in this slide. So that'll be 100% hydrogen, natural gas, as well as different blended gases. This building really was designed with hydrogen in mind, and so there were some design considerations that we undertook for this building, which includes, increased ventilation. We did design this building to be in Q 1784, so that's a hydrogen installation code, really to ensure that materials and components were hydrogen compatible. There's a number of different gas sensors within the building, and pretty neat as well as this building has a hydronic heating system with a traditional building rooftop units, capable of supplying heat in the case of an interrupted hydrogen supply. So there really is redundant heat source within this building. So that brings us to our 100% hydrogen home and Bremner communities. So ATCO and Qualico received funding to complete a front-end engineering design, or a FEED study, for a 100% hydrogen community in Strathcona County, so the Bremner community. Really, this FEED study is a desktop study looking to determine, what a 100% hydrogen community looks like, what changes need to be made. So our teams are hard at work on that piece. As part of this project, we're actually building a 100% hydrogen heated house in Sherwood Park as well in Strathcona County. And similar to FSOC, this is a building that will be commissioned early next year. So this will be North America's first 100% hydrogen heated home. So another project that we're really, really excited about. So I'm sure you're all wondering what appliances are actually going within FSOC and the 100% hydrogen home. And really for 100% hydrogen appliances, or I guess any appliances in general, that nearly 99% of residential gas use is for space and water heating. So obviously the vast majority of gas use is for space and water heating. ATCO's worked with Gradient Thermal, D&V, and NFN to design, manufacture, and certify 100% hydrogen forced air furnace and hot water heater. So that's what's shown in the slide here. This unit has been had successful testing in both North America and the Netherlands. And this is what will be installed early next year in the house and in FSOC. There are other appliances and standards available outside of Canada, such as barbecues, boilers, stoves, fireplaces, and we're really excited to see, as the hydrogen space here grows in North America, what really becomes more available for demonstration projects such as these. So I know that is short and sweet. Before I open it up to any questions, I did just want to plug our email, h2@atco.com. So obviously ask any questions you might have here today. But if you think of anything after the fact, you can send them to our team at h2@atco.com. We have our employees monitoring this email and we'll get back to you. We also have our hydrogen website listed on the site. And with that, I will open it up to any questions.
Thank you so much, Laura. I don't know if you can see the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. If you pull it up, or the webinar chat. If you pull it up, there's a question for you from Chris.
Give me 1 second.
How do NOx emissions compare between NG versus H2 combustion? Probably mispronouncing those terms.
Sorry, can you just repeat the question?
Sure. How do NOx and emissions compare between NG versus H2 combustion?
Yeah, that's a really great question. That's actually a question we got quite a bit. That was one thing that we're really looking for as part of our appliance testing program. And really, when we analyzed the NOx emissions for hydrogen and hydrogen blended appliances, we found that there is really no changes. So NOx emissions really do stay stable with the introduction of hydrogen into end-use appliances. Great question.
From Russell, how does a hydrogen blend affect the CSA rating of existing gas appliances that you are testing in the field with homeowners?
Yeah, that's another really great question. So CSA did issue a clarification stating that test gas A, so what natural gas appliances are certified to, does include 5% hydrogen. So there's no impact for 5% hydrogen, and we're actively working with CSA to look at higher blend rates, but 5% is covered.
Thank you so much. So those are the questions for now. If you do have more questions for Laura, if we have time at the end of the presentation, we will tackle those. But for now, thank you so much for joining us for this webinar, and back to Pete.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks, Laura. Next up, we have John Stronach, Senior Advisor of the Natural Gas and Hydrogen Division within the hydrogen team at NRCan, within the Government of Canada. He'll be talking on the progress on Canada's hydrogen strategy. You'll learn we'll do an overview of the picture of low carbon hydrogen in Canada and how low carbon hydrogen for building heating opportunities fits within the hydrogen strategy. John Stronach has been a senior advisor supporting Canada's hydrogen policy development since 2022. He is responsible for leading the ongoing development of Canada's hydrogen strategy, which is very important, of course. It provides leadership for the different industry sectors in the country, as well as investment. He's also leading the progress report that will be published in early 2024 on the hydrogen strategy. He's been a public servant for the Government of Canada since 2015. He worked at Environment and Climate Change Canada from 2016 to 2018, developing regs for Canada's electricity sector. He's also worked at NRCan since 2018, including on Indigenous consultations on the Trans Mountain Pipeline project and the Indigenous engagement on small modular nuclear reactors. John has a master's in sustainable energy policy from Carleton University and now lives in Ottawa. He was born in Mississauga, where his family settled after fleeing communist Czechoslovakia. John, interesting background. You certainly can speak from experience in the energy industry from both on the environment side, it looks like, as well as the community engagement. And it'd be very interesting to hear what you've got to say regarding sort of the status on Canada's hydrogen strategy. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Pete. Lovely introduction. I think my presentation is going to, I think Laura was great at kind of really diving into a lot of these pieces on projects that are ongoing right now, really incorporating hydrogen for heating. Mine is going to be more of a higher context. So kind of, what was the hydrogen strategy for Canada when it was developed back in 2020, and sort of, again, where does hydrogen for heating fit within the whole story of low carbon hydrogen in Canada. So I'm going to go now to the share screen and get started. A bit of context as well before I maybe get going. You mentioned that again, I work within Natural Resources Canada, and as a bit of a reminder, we're a federal department, federal ministry, and our main mandate is to maximize the benefits to Canadians of natural resources. So that's a fairly sort of high level mandate. Benefits can mean a lot of different things, and that can mean both sort of the economic benefits that come from sort of creating jobs and creating opportunities for economic activity, also the environmental benefits. So the kind of environmental benefits that you get from new clean energy and from emission reduction, mitigating climate change, all those kinds of aspects, as well as the social aspects, some of those ones that I mentioned in my bio there. Indigenous consultation that brings about, works towards Indigenous reconciliation. All those fit within sort of the mandate of Natural Resources Canada. And in the past year, I've joined this team working on low carbon hydrogen, largely because it has been something that has really interested me as something that we get to really sort of play in a lot of different sandboxes and really sort of look at the challenges of the energy transition in a lot of different areas across Canada. So for me, that's a lot of fun. I like to learn about all these different ways that hydrogen can be used, and sort of all the different ways that we could find various incentives and mechanisms and ways that we can kind of help make that happen. So what was the hydrogen strategy for Canada? Is really sort of a multi-year effort, from starting around probably 2017 right up until 2020 when it was published, of extensive engagement and consultation around the whole country, and bringing together experts to kind of understand what could be the role here of hydrogen in Canada as a tool for decarbonization or otherwise. What the strategy concluded in the end was that yes, low carbon hydrogen could have this role in Canada, could help not just for decarbonization in the country, but also broadly in these global energy needs. Really, where we found that hydrogen could have the best role is sort of as a support, as something that can help electrification. Electrification is still going to be the main tool in Canada for decarbonization, because we have these great clean electricity resources, but in some areas, it's not going to be the most economical way to achieve decarbonization. So either where it's not economical to kind of get the electricity there, or whatever that process, whatever that use of energy is, electricity maybe doesn't make a lot of sense. So that's kind of where we're able to find that hydrogen can play a role in some of those key areas and those key sectors. We found through the hydrogen strategy that, again, it is something that is very flexible, has a lot of different uses in a lot of different ways, and is really around kind of trying to then identify what are kind of the best places then for it could be used, right? We know it can be used as a fuel, as something that can power cars and fuel cells, as a feedstock that can go into heavy industry and some of their processes, and as an energy storage medium, so essentially as a way to sort of move energy and almost kind of be a way for storing, whether it's electricity generated from renewables and then being used in a way elsewhere that is again, can be stored as that hydrogen and then used later on, rather than being used as electricity where it would have to go through transmission and essentially be used immediately. It's also this opportunity for Canada to be a supplier of choice, both of the hydrogen itself as an energy, as well as the technologies that are using it. It's something that a lot of people maybe sort of forget, that Canada has this already great history in using hydrogen. So that was another thing that was found through the development of the hydrogen strategy. It's really been something that an industry that has existed for decades, just not necessarily in the sense of using it in a low carbon manner, but we have a lot of expertise in understanding the molecule and understanding how it works. There's tradition in Canada in manufacturing hydrogen buses, for example, rail, fuel cells. So a lot of companies that have been operating in this space for many years, even though it wasn't necessarily identified as sort of a decarbonization tool, but really the country has been at the forefront of using hydrogen for many decades. And this is part of the advantages that was identified in the hydrogen strategy. Really sort of what can make Canada a successful player in the space. Abundant feedstocks being a key one. We really have a lot of areas in Canada where we could still generate a lot more energy from various means. So that could be, there's a lot of wind in Atlantic Canada that hasn't been tapped into in other parts of the country, whereas other countries don't necessarily have that, so we really need kind of their existing sources of renewable energy, largely just to even decarbonize their own electricity grids. Leading innovation is something that I already spoke to, in an existing energy sector with a lot of expertise that already understands a lot of around these gases and how they use, including hydrogen. International collaboration, so we have these strong connections to other countries that are going to be markets for Canadian hydrogen as well. That includes the access to the export markets in other countries. We mentioned here, Japan, South Korea, in California, Europe. So proximity to some of these other markets that are looking globally like are going to be the main sources of where of major sort of global demand for clean hydrogen. And sort of that starting point again of the fact that Canada has already been in the hydrogen space for many decades. The hydrogen strategy provided 32 recommendations, and these are not recommendations just to sort of the government, right? These are recommendations, some to the federal government, some to provincial government, some to industry, some to academia, and to others. Again, non-binding recommendations, but at least sort of guiding recommendations to allow sort of folks to know what are some areas that would help achieve all of the the potential benefits that could come from low carbon hydrogen. So these 32 recommendations were organized according to these 8 pillars that you see on the slides. So that includes things like strategic partnerships, again, getting together between levels of government and with industry to work together, whether it's through working groups or other things of that sort. Working towards enabling policies and regulations, updating what we have in Canada so that hydrogen would be possible to be used in some areas, or other policy to help incent supply or demand or otherwise. Recommendations around awareness and de-risking investments. Codes and standards is probably the key one for this group here. And those are really the recommendations around updating all of our codes and standards so that they can so the hydrogen can be used in these various end uses that were identified. ATCO talked a little bit about that already when they were talking about CSA and the standards around what is allowed for blending, but that's a lot of that story that is there, is sort of updating what exists in Canada, since previously they weren't considered to really think about using hydrogen in the past. Here's a slide that I like to sort of use when I want to sort of describe the whole picture of how hydrogen could be used in Canada. And this is our team here at NRCan. This is the whole picture that we're trying to sort of keep track of. On the left side, you see all the different ways that one could produce low carbon hydrogen. So through various electrolysis. So we're trying to track what are all the different projects that are happening in Canada, where are they at, how far are they along, what help do they need, both in sort of electrolysis, so what is typically called green hydrogen. We try and avoid use of colors in over here in government to largely focus only on carbon intensity. That kind of helps with some of the confusion because other people have different definitions of colors. There's no international standards around the different colors of hydrogen. So for us, it's all about just the carbon intensity of the hydrogen that gets produced. So again, that can be produced through electrolysis or otherwise through what's typically called blue hydrogen. So that's through either steam methane reforming or autothermal reforming with carbon capture and storage. So it's really the carbon capture and storage method there that lowers the carbon intensity of that hydrogen. That would then move to, then it's all about sort of the ways that hydrogen can be and the infrastructure required for storage and distribution of it. And on the right side of this graphic, you have all the different end uses of hydrogen. So that includes what we identified as can be used in a lot of heavy industry sectors and facilities. So steel, cement, fertilizer manufacturing, oil and gas refining and upgrading, production of biofuels. That's all there on the top right. Below that, hydrogen used for transportation. So we really try to follow along what's going along there and how we can help hydrogen being used for rail, for medium and heavy duty vehicles and trucking, for operations and things like in port operations, airport operations. And then sort of furthest on the right here, hydrogen for heating. So that's really kind of what brings us to here. But it's to kind of say, again, space that, for us, we're trying to really look at the whole picture and how that, this integrated energy system process and all the ways that we can help build out this entire sort of low carbon hydrogen economy. So we have to look at both the supply, both the demand, and the export opportunities, and really sort of work towards trying to help out that whole picture. So that was all from the hydrogen strategy back in 2020. Today we are at a point where it's really, this market around low carbon hydrogen is really sort of booming. The interest around it, we're seeing it across the country. So you have a bit of a preview map of what we're going to be showing in the progress report when we publish it next month. But this map kind of shows really the interest in hydrogen across the country and in all the different ways. All those blue circles, all those green circles that you see on this map are announcements of major projects for producing hydrogen. So you can see Atlantic Canada, a lot of projects that have been announced. A lot of those are export focused. In Alberta, a lot of major projects announced as well. And those ones have more of that domestic focus where the hydrogen will be used in Canada for decarbonization purposes. As well as a lot of different icons, whole different colors. Again, the purpose of this map is to give kind of that whole picture, but showing projects or initiatives, or in some cases even deployment of hydrogen in various different means in transportation, in trucking, in rail, in vehicle refueling, as well as in industry and heating. So blending projects, heavy industry, and electricity generation. A lot of provinces have also sort of been very interested as well. So this map shows which provinces have published their own provincial hydrogen strategies that follow the federal hydrogen strategy, as well as those provinces where hydrogen strategies are under development. So that often helps because on the provincial side, you really get to see, really dig deeper in those areas, what are the key opportunities for where carbon hydrogen can be used. That's sort of the supply side. Again, on the demand side, I've mentioned this a little bit already, but here are some of the key markets that we're seeing really develop for where it can be used. With natural gas blending and heating is one of those. Hydrogen hubs is another part of the hydrogen strategy that we're really trying to promote as a strategy for sort of, again, the economical use of low carbon hydrogen. So it's really around looking at where can production and supply really match markets for demand. That's what makes it sort of most economical to use hydrogen in those areas, because you don't have to worry too much about moving that energy over to the demand through either new infrastructure or other pieces of that sort. So the hubs concept is an important one for us. Diving more into the blending story here, I'm not going to go into the projects from ATCO because you just learned about them, but we are trying to keep track and sort of understand the story and what is going on. And broadly speaking, we're at a point where pilot projects are happening, feasibility studies are happening across Canada, and that knowledge, that intelligence that's going to be built through those initial blending projects is really going to help sort of provide the intelligence to understand going forward how big of an opportunity this could be and what else is sort of needed. Another key piece that we already talked about in the last presentations were the Canadian Standards Association. They have allowed up to 5% blending by volume, saying that is covered by current certifications. In 2022 as well, one of the key standards development organizations in Canada, the Bureau de Normalisation de Quebec, updated the Canadian Hydrogen Installation Code. So if you weren't aware of that already, that code was updated, provides plenty there on sort of as an updated code for things like piping installations and other things, all these different things that ways that hydrogen can be used. And blending projects that are happening right now. So Enbridge has an important one in Ontario, a 2.5 megawatt electrolysis project that is producing hydrogen through electrolysis and then using it for natural gas blending. That one is servicing 3,600 households in the market in Ontario. I'm not going to go into the ATCO ones because we just talked about that, but I think one that Laura didn't mention that back in for the hydrogen convention that happened last year, ATCO provided a 20% blend for the Edmonton Convention Center for when it hosted that Canadian Hydrogen Convention. Again, it was just sort of 3 days, but it was a great sort of demonstration of sort of how it could be used to blend hydrogen and provide that in sort of to a large space, to a large facility. Another project is happening in Gatineau, Quebec, so north of here, from where I am in Ottawa. From Edelugan and Gassier, where they'll be building a 20 megawatt electrolysis project. Again, the main sort of market that hydrogen will be targeting will be for blending in the Gatineau natural gas distribution network. And Fortis, I won't go into any details for because they'll be speaking next. Very quickly, just for folks' awareness, here are some of the key funding and policy measures that exist right now on hydrogen. The big one that we're working on is the Clean Hydrogen Investment Tax Credit. That will be for hydrogen production projects. So again, that'll be from, based on a measure of carbon intensity, they'll be getting a credit on their capital expenses from 15 to 40%. There are other tax credits that can also help with various pieces of equipment for used in projects to produce hydrogen, including the CCUS ITC, Green Electricity, Clean Technologies, and Clean Technology Manufacturing ITCs. All these are being developed right now under sort of relatively rapid timelines to try and get them out and readily available starting around next year. And others. Not all of these are sort of very specific to hydrogen for heating, but what they would do is help again with building up that market, so building up that supply that can then be used in those various hydrogen end uses. And I mentioned before, but another sort of reminder here at the end of my presentation. What's coming up next year will be this update of the hydrogen strategy. So really measuring how we've been doing since 2020, measuring that progress. That'll be the progress report, either January or February, unless the minister wants any changes, in which case you might see some delays. That's currently up with him for approval. They'll be highlighting those key developments. There will be some new projections of hydrogen's role through modeling for those people that really care about what sort of the modeling exercises say. A bit of a roadmap of next steps. There's also going to be a code to standards roadmap. So this is something that our code to standards working group on the hydrogen strategy has been working on for the last little while. It'll be coming out next year. It's going to identify key gaps, existing gaps in codes and standards, as well as for help provide a bit of a prioritization of sort of what are the key gaps that should be worked on for the hydrogen value chain. So that is it for me, and happy to go ahead and take some questions.
Thank you so much. No questions from the chat at this end. Pete, unless you had some of your own, I think.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
John, thanks so much for that presentation. It was nice to hear. There's been a lot of work, it sounds like, on it since the last go round a few years ago. You mentioned codes and standards and the codes and standards working group that you guys have. Are you guys working with the Standards Council of Canada and their hydrogen gap analysis?
Yeah, it's essentially the same thing. Sort of worked in under different titles. But they're a key part. SCC, I think, co-chairs that codes and standards working group. So they are all heavily involved. Without the standards development organizations involved in that kind of work, there really wouldn't be that much of a point to a working group sort of without them. So I know Atco's there and others. It's a great group. It's we set up a bunch of working groups after the hydrogen strategy was published. Some of them kind of died off. There wasn't necessarily interest, or there wasn't necessarily a clear objective of what some of those working groups could work on. But the codes and standards one was the one that has the clearest objective, the clearest purpose, and is working very hard to really help push that forward.
Perfect. Thanks, John. I don't have any other questions. Anyone else have any questions for John?
Nothing we can see right now, but I'll keep monitoring if you want to move on.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, John. Appreciate your presenting and giving us an update on the value chain work and where the country sees hydrogen helping out, which is great. Next up, we have Mr. John Quinn, who's the Senior Manager of Renewable Gas Supply at FortisBC in British Columbia, of course. His presentation will be on the update on hydrogen development at Fortis. There's the learning objectives are renewable gas policy drivers in BC. You'll learn about hydrogen strategy and key focus areas of Fortis, utility planning and preparation that FortisBC is doing. John is a professional mechanical engineer and holds a master's degree in sustainable electrical energy systems with 23 years of experience in the energy sector. He brings a broad understanding of the energy industry, having held leadership roles in energy-focused organizations in Ireland, the UK, and Canada. With FortisBC since 2012, John has held several leadership roles in project management, engineering, and major project business units, supporting over $1 billion of major capital projects. In his current role, managing the renewable gas supply team, John also leads FortisBC's renewable gas and hydrogen strategy, including business planning, alignment, corporate sustainability goals, and engagement at all levels of government with key stakeholders. John, over to you, my friend.
Hey, thank you, Pete. Am I coming through?
Yes, you are. Sound good.
Super. Good morning, everyone. As Pete mentioned, John Quinn here. I'm a senior manager in the renewable gas and low carbon supply group at Fortis. So basically, I lead our team responsible for FortisBC's renewable gas development related to hydrogen and some other low carbon fuels. So this morning, I'll basically summarize at a high level FortisBC's renewable gas development mandate, at a high level our hydrogen strategy and focus areas, and our current activities related to gas system hydrogen feasibility work, some of our planning and preparation to support hydrogen deployment, and our ongoing renewable gas supply opportunities. So at Fortis, As we progress gas system decarbonization, our renewable gas development activities are intended to enable and increase the supply and delivery of new forms of renewable and low carbon fuels, such as hydrogen. So for the last 15 years at Fortis, we have been developing renewable natural gas, or biomethane, as a key pillar of our decarbonization strategy. So the team out lead is responsible for new forms of low carbon fuels, such as hydrogen. And over the last 5 years, government policy in British Columbia and regulations regarding climate action have continued to progress. So this has reinforced the need of FortisBC to prepare our system for the introduction of alternative low carbon fuels, such as hydrogen. We do have a unique piece of legislation in British Columbia. It's called the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Regulation. That is the acronym you see on the middle block. And that really enables, from an economic perspective or commercial perspective, our ability to acquire through production or procurement and recover the costs of various low carbon fuels, such as hydrogen, and two unusual ones, such as syngas and lignin, that I won't pause on today. So in addition to that update, the provincial Clean BC roadmap was also updated recently, and that targets a 47% reduction in greenhouse gases from buildings and industry by 2030. So very aggressive decarbonization policy targets in place in British Columbia. So at FortisBC, we are acting in accordance with these policy initiatives. We are expanding our resources to support renewable gas development and deployment. And we continue to progress various activities in what we think is a measured way. Everything is in the interest of our customers here in British Columbia to enable these low carbon energy options, which I'm going to speak to in the following slides. In terms of our hydrogen strategy, we have aligned our hydrogen strategy at FortisBC with the BC hydrogen strategy. I think British Columbia was one of the first provinces to come out with a hydrogen strategy on foot of the hydrogen strategy for Canada. And basically, our strategy, in alignment with the province, envisions low carbon hydrogen supply for large scale blending and delivery in the gas system to decarbonize energy in buildings and industry. And our priority is to build on our preliminary feasibility work, which we've completed to date. And this is summarized in the leftmost text box on this slide. So going forward over a number of years at FortisBC, we plan to focus on the three key areas shown and the activities thereunder in the three text boxes under the ongoing and planned hydrogen activities banner. Firstly, our planned BC gas system hydrogen study will focus on feasibility and technical assessment to inform our evolving strategy, our roadmap plan, and our hydrogen blending targets. At Fortis, we intend to collaborate with the other gas system operators in British Columbia who are also planning their own hydrogen feasibility studies. And we think together this collaboration may result in one of Canada's first province-wide gas system hydrogen readiness projects. We're also designing our hydrogen roadmap to guide our utility planning and preparation into the future to deploy hydrogen service. It's very new for FortisBC and for British Columbia. And as we scale hydrogen further into the future, new tasks will likely need to be planned and executed on an iterative basis. Therefore, we anticipate that our hydrogen roadmap, it will be a living document. It will be amended over time as we step into ever greater deployment of hydrogen. And lastly, we'll continue to evaluate renewable gas supply opportunities to meet demand in our northern, interior, and lower mainland service areas, including hydrogen production and third-party offtake supply. And our focus right now is on the technical and commercial due diligence and regulatory and permitting approvals on a number of opportunities, which I'll speak to later. So just focus a little bit on our BC gas system hydrogen study. We believe it certainly will be important to inform the requirements to distribute hydrogen safely in the gas systems to customers in BC. And Fortis has received provincial funding to offset about 30% of the project costs. And the province, the British Columbia Utilities Commission, and technical regulators will be informed as key stakeholders as the project progresses. We intend to start phase 1 of the project in early 2024, and it will focus on our low pressure gas distribution system and behind the meter end use applications. And a few of the key deliverables of this project I'll speak to. Firstly, overall safety and reliability will be managed under Fortis's existing risk management processes and will be evaluated as part of a dedicated hydrogen risk assessment. High-level findings from many international hydrogen safety programs and pilots are emerging, and these will be leveraged and integrated into our project planning. A component level analysis will be completed to review and confirm pipeline and facility materials and equipment hydrogen compatibility, and a system level analysis will be completed to review gas supply requirements for fuel quality and interchangeability, and gas system capacity, planning and management. And end use analysis will be completed to review residential, commercial, and industrial equipment and consider sensitive end users such as liquefied natural gas or compressed natural gas for transportation. And then based on these findings, Fortis will develop an internal corporate hydrogen standard. So this will basically qualify our gas supply service areas or sections of our service areas as we step into pilot projects based on confirmed hydrogen blend limits. And then we expect that the standard will be updated and enhanced over time to enable ever higher blends, ever higher hydrogen blending limits as industry knowledge, code, standards, and regulations develop. So a little bit on our utility hydrogen planning and preparation. So as part of our overall body of work in this area, we're designing a roadmap plan. We intend this to be a central tool to guide our execution of key tasks and initiatives to deploy hydrogen service. Some of these are highlighted in this slide. Codes and standards I've previously mentioned, and is a really critical development. And FEI will continue to engage and lead change where appropriate. For example, we are participating with other stakeholders on the CSA Hydrogen Task Force to develop requirements for renewable gas and hydrogen, codified in the latest Canadian Oil and Gas Pipeline Standard, CSA Z662, and further work is underway behind the meter also. Innovation obviously is a priority, and you heard ATCO and Enercan speak to this in the previous slides, in previous presentations. In BC, in Fortis, we continue to work with University of British Columbia and their Okanagan campus on their H2 Lab initiative, which is British Columbia's first innovation and testing center for gas system blending. A recent highlight is the development of a simplified design concept for pipeline hydrogen injection and mixing. And this paper, or this research, was peer-reviewed and published in a number of academic journals over the last couple of quarters. With a focus on education, in 2024 at Fortis, we plan to set up a hydrogen demonstration, training, and education center, abbreviated H2DTEC. This will be at our Surrey Operations Gas Lab to assist employee and stakeholder understanding around hydrogen. We continue to partner with industry peers on hydrogen advancement initiatives. For example, the High for Home project is Canada's first industry initiative between a number of Canadian utilities to test specific appliances on hydrogen, and it will be material in enabling hydrogen blending in existing gas appliances and equipment. At Fortis, we are progressing BC's first project to demonstrate hydrogen blending in an isolated section of our distribution system. In 2023, Fortis was awarded about 40% funding from the Enercan CFF to offset our cost, progress design, project planning, key stakeholder engagement. And finally, Fortis is collaborating with Harmac Pacific on British Columbia's first industrial hydrogen blending project on Vancouver Island. So the graphic shown on the left of this slide illustrates the proposed third-party hydrogen production facility located beside the existing Fortis customer gas station where the hydrogen will be blended. And this project was awarded Clean BC and Fortis funding of approximately $3.3 million to progress project design, development, and execution. And finally, on the supply side, we continue to evaluate a number of renewable gas and hydrogen opportunities, and we're making progress towards what we hope will be our first supply agreements late this year, early next year. We're progressing early stage development feasibility work for green and industrial byproduct hydrogen production and offtake supply opportunities in our northern, lower mainland, and interior service areas. And one of our first green hydrogen opportunities was awarded funding by Enercan Clean Fuel Fund to progress front-end engineering design. We're also working with Hazer Group from Australia to progress early-stage technology development for an innovative low-carbon hydrogen facility in British Columbia using the Hazer methane pyrolysis process. The project was awarded approximately $8 million by CleanBC to progress front-end development towards potential final investment decision in 2025. And the rendering to the left of this slide depicts the planned 400,000 gigajoules per year BC facility. So this will be a commercial demonstration facility of this technology. We are currently working to optimize the project, including identified a suitable industrial site and offtake strategy. And this is my short and sweet update this morning. I had a 10-minute limit. Hopefully I kept within it. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, John, and thanks for keeping it short and sweet. A lot of good information there. So we do have 8 remaining minutes in this webinar to field any further questions you might have. And while we're collecting those, Pete, do you want to give information on the upcoming conference again, where people can kind of dive deeper into these topics?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Yeah, if you're interested, if you or any colleagues are interested in diving deeper into the into hydrogen use for heating, there is going to be a conference on January 30th that we're putting on. You can register at h2heating.net. We're going to have someone from the Netherlands talking about the heating a village with 100% hydrogen. In the UK, we're going to get an update on their 100% hydrogen demonstration and how the public has been, the acceptance levels of the public. There's going to be a hydrogen appliance testing panel where they're going to be talking about a number of different perspectives and how to set up hydrogen labs. It's useful for testing from manufacturers, utilities, research labs, to test different gas appliances using different blends of hydrogen up to 100%. There's also going to be a discussion from UL on their activities, including verification of hydrogen appliances from low-level blends to 100% hydrogen and hydrogen-ready gas appliances. And we're also going to hear of the current and future states of hydrogen at local distribution companies. And this is going to be an overview from an organization that looks after hydrogen pilots, and over 20 different gas utilities will be represented in that. So it'll be about a 5-hour, but it's going to be a virtual conference. So it'll be easy to attend. Relatively inexpensive, easy, and a quick way of learning more about what's going on. Thanks, Matt.
Fantastic. And again, if people want to sign up for that, or you want to put in chat maybe the website while we still have some time.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Appreciate that.
And if you just want to check your chat, that's where the link will be to sign up or just get more information. So this webinar will live on the HRIA YouTube page. If you'd like to refer to it again, maybe get contacts for our speakers. Speaking of which, I want to send a huge thank you to John, and Laura for giving their time, busy on all ends right before the holiday break, but spending an hour with us on this very important topic. And for Pete, obviously, with the Hydrogen Heating Network, for organizing this all, getting this information out there to you. So if there are no further questions, maybe give people 5 minutes back in their day to pretend they were on a webinar, and maybe go grab another coffee. And I think we'll call it.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. John Stronach, John Quinn at Fortis, and Laura, appreciate it. It's great. We got to hear folks from the government strategy side, everything, and back down to where the hydrogen is actually being produced. So thanks a lot, everyone.
There. Sounds like someone needs a walking in the background.
Yeah, our dog. Apologize.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you for the next HRIA webinar. Cheers.